This is my review of Mathew Perry's memoir, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing. If you don't know who Mathew Perry is, he played Chandler Bing on the show Friends. You've definitely heard of Friends. You know, the show has made many of us laugh over the years. I grew up with Friends. Obviously, when I was a lot younger, a lot of the jokes went over my head. When I got older, I rewatched the show, and it's obviously way better when you understand all the adult jokes. I'm going to put autobiography and memoirs in the same category here. When I read one of those by a celebrity or just a successful or famous person, I end up feeling like I knew that person by the end of it because they're so intimate and they share so much detail about their life and everything that they've learned, everything that they went through. You just feel like you knew them actually because they become relatable. You see that, okay, yeah, they had a crazy life and they worked hard to get where they were. They weren't just born into this or anything like that. Even with all the fame and fortune, their life was still hard. They still faced challenges. They still face regular people problems that we have. I'm just going to talk about the main things that stood out to me in this book. By the end of it, I was just like I'm saying, I felt like I knew Mathew. It's a weird feeling because, this is the first memoir or autobiography that I've read where the person has passed away literally last year. Rest in peace, Mathew Perry. I didn't really know anything really aside from the fact that he played Chandler Bing. He was Canadian and he was a Blue Jays fan. So going back to why I even purchased this book. For me to purchase a book, I have to have some sort of connection, especially of a celebrity or someone famous. There has to be some deeper reason. I won't just buy it just to buy it. I saw an article where it talked about how Mathew Perry was very adamant on including a Toronto Blue Jays hat on the set of Friends, and more specifically on a shelf on the desk where Chandler Bing works in Friends. That stood out to me because, well, I've been a Blue Jays fan since I was 10 years old, so more than 20 years now. So I was like, whoa, hold on. This guy from Friends was Canadian? That's the only explanation as to why he could have been a Blue Jays fan. The Jays, if you don't know, they won World Series in 92 and 93. I was born in 93, so obviously I missed the World Series, but I'm sure Mathew Perry was very well aware of that World Series. He says in the book, there's one paragraph towards the end of the book that I read, he says that even with all his success that he's had in his life, he had a friend who lived in a rent-controlled apartment building and had diabetes and struggled with money and was worried about money every single day of their life. And he literally says, I would trade places with that friend in a heartbeat. That says a lot to me about, how money isn't everything. Of course, it's great. It makes your life easier in some respect. Ultimately, that's not going to help you fill certain voids in your life. He struggled with addiction throughout his life. So I don't think this book is for everyone because it gets very, very dark. Reading this book gave me a lot of gratitude for my situation. We take the blessings in our life for granted a lot. I think it's human nature to compare ourselves and seek what we don't have and forget about all the blessings that we do have in our life. His journey, struggle with addiction, and just hearing about how he grew up and how that played a part into the addiction and all that stuff and his relationships it just made me realize even like having this kind of perspective at a young age, it's a blessing. That's a blessing in itself. So that's why I enjoy reading books like this and getting the perspective from somebody who's lived and experienced life, and they've had highs and they've had lows. At the end, they kind of know what's important and what's not important in life, and he kind of reflects at the end of the book on what he wanted actually to do moving forward. Another thing I learned from the book is that Mathew Perry actually knew Justin Trudeau as a kid because Mathew Perry's mom was secretary to Pierre Trudeau, who was the Prime Minister of Canada at a time. Mathew Perry talks about how he beat up Justin Trudeau. I really gravitate to people who are not afraid to put their real life circumstances out there and be vulnerable, because I am at a point in my life where I think that's so important to put out there to the world, because there's a lot of fake things and someone is struggling with something at every single point in time, and just putting out that, hey, you're also struggling, but yet this is what I'm doing about it could help somebody. Another thing that he mentions is how there's trade-offs in life, which hit me really hard. A little bit of spoiler alert here. He was talking about how his father was able to drink alcohol and then get up the next day and live his life normally and not be a train wreck and stop drinking when he wanted to, and he can have as many drinks as he wants and then still be able to function the next day, whereas for him it didn't go that way, and his father could could stop and then go and business as usual next day, whereas he couldn't. And he was just wondering like, hey, why me? Why did I have to go through and spend $7 million on therapy to deal with this problem or disease that I have? Then he realized, well, his dad never had $7 million to spend on anything. So it's like somebody out there is wishing that they had your money or your fame or your wealth or your living situation or your relationship or your family. You could be like, well, I would give all of this up just for what's going on in my head to not be a thing. He was talking about at one point in time, he was living in a $20 million penthouse. He made $1 million per episode from Friends. He was dating Julia Roberts at one point. To the outside world, it would seem like, wow, like, yo, his life is perfect, whatever. Like, despite that, his day-to-day basis was spent with pills and alcohol. A quote that came from his book was, "Two things that alcoholics hate are change and the way things are." The other thing about this book is I don't find myself laughing from a book like this, but he was truly hilarious. I also believe that the funniest people have dealt with a lot of pain. Comedy is just an outlet or a form of coping with that pain. As serious as the book is, the book made me laugh throughout. Like even at the very end, I literally laughed out loud. His sense of humor is very dark. In a lot of ways, I do relate to him in terms of his I think the word is disdain for, society and the way things are, the way he was complaining about how the healthcare system or the doctors and nurses and stuff like that, or the whole rehab system and how it works. There's a little bit of behind the scenes about Friends, but it didn't really go too much behind the scenes about Friends, just more so about Matthew's life. But he did talk about his addiction and then being on a set of Friends and filming Friends, and then his career, the movies and the shows that he was in, how he even got his start on Friends, which was very, very interesting. It was hard for me to put this book down, honestly. It's just kind of weird now because he passed away last year, and it seemed to me as if at the end of the book he had realized everything he needed to realize about life. Just because you have money and you had a successful career, you are having a successful career, doesn't mean your life can't be hard. Is biggest takeaway from this book. And his life was very, very hard. And it starts with how your life begins, because a lot of people have a rough start to their life, a very, very rough start. You may think that your life sucks now, but you might have had an easier life beginning versus other people. Or you might have had a rough life and then things got better and then now things are okay. Some people, their life starts out rough. They have, little wins, like, they have wins, in certain aspects. Like, Mathew Perry, he was acting and comedy came natural to him. One of my favorite comedians, Chris D'Elia, he said that in life, I feel like everyone is given an equal amount of adversity or hardship throughout their life, not just in one point of their life, but throughout their total life. It's up to you how you deal with it. You can have it great in one aspect, but maybe you're not even thinking about that. You're just thinking about all the things you're lacking, and you kind of miss out on the fact that somebody out there is actually praying and hoping that they have what you have that you're taking for granted. Reading his book, it seemed like he was not able to enjoy life. There was moments, but on a daily basis, he wasn't able to sleep more than 4 hours consistently. When you know that like sleep is the most important thing, beyond everything else, beyond the food that we eat, beyond exercise, if you're not sleeping, how can you even be a happy person, or even how can you even do anything? And yet he was able to go out there and film Friends and be who he is and make all of us laugh on TV, on the screen. That's such an impressive feat, honestly. He was very proud of how big he became and being on Friends. He had that chip on his shoulder. I can definitely tell. I love books like this because it gives you access to the mind of somebody who has achieved these crazy things. It humanizes them, and you get to see what they went through and how they got there, how they dealt with it when they got there, the adversity that came with it that you don't see when you're watching the show because it's pure entertainment. It's an escape, right? The show is essentially an escape. Whereas his life, what was his escape? You know what I mean? Like, it sucks. Anyways, this is kind of a dark reflection of the book. I don't want to make this video too long. If you've read the book, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. But yeah, so those are just my thoughts on Friends, Lovers, and The Big Terrible Thing. Mathew Perry's memoir. Gave me a lot to think about. So grateful that I was able to buy it and have the chance to read it and learn about what it means to go through something like addiction. I'll see you guys in the next one.